Hello and welcome to session 4, mental health and well-being. Now, mental health and well-being affects every part of our life, including our work and how we perform. So it's really important that we look after ourselves and we put ourselves in a position so that we've got energy, we can stay motivated and we can remain focused. It's totally understandable at the moment, due to the uncertainty around and the fact that we're living during a pandemic, that people would feel anxious or fearful or worried. Now, these emotions can actually serve as a positive support in some way to us, in that they can help us take action. So we are naturally built up with a sort of fight or flight mentality when we feel we're in danger, or there's something that we believe that we are at risk about. So we can use emotions to direct our behaviour in a positive way. The difficulty is when these emotions then become unhealthy and when these emotions start to take control of us, so they affect our lifestyle, they affect the way we do things, they affect the way we're feeling. So we need to look at nurturing healthier ways mentally and physically, emotionally and behaviourally, so that we can in fact become more resilient, boost our self-esteem and also tackle these emotions and manage these emotions. Now, there's 3 ways that we can look at this so that we can provide ourselves with a system, if you like, or a process to help keep on top of things. And the first thing is around prevention. So what are the kind of things that we can do to even prevent ourselves being in this situation and being sabotaged, if you like, by the enemy when these negative emotions try to take root? The next is intervention. So what steps do we have in place so that when we are feeling these emotions, that we know what to physically have to do? And then the third is protection. So what assurances or what support do we know that we can turn to, so that if we ever are feeling overwhelmed, that we know what to do about it and know where to turn. And that's the interesting thing, I suppose, that we do have to take into consideration, is the fact that people may be comfortable and confident at dealing with certain things and one at a time. But if we've already got worries at home, or our finances, or there's other aspects that are affecting us, then when we have additional things on top, that's when it starts to become unmanageable. Also, we have to take into account that we might have loved ones or colleagues that are also struggling. So it's a great opportunity now to consider not only just helping ourselves, but how can we reach out and help other people. So if we take prevention as the first point, and now we're coming into a situation here where it's a battlefield of the mind. So I suppose we could consider ourselves that you know what, we have to get ready for war and that we're going to take control of this situation. So if we recognise how we're feeling and we acknowledge why we're feeling this way, then we can validate those feelings, and then that can allow us then to consider what we need to do so that we are in control of the situation. We don't want to make a friend of these emotions. They're the enemy. We don't want to give them any more mind space than they actually deserve. These are emotions that want to come and create havoc in the mind. So if we start by thinking about what we're thinking, so our thought process, that's a really good point. If we can try and create thoughts that put us in a better situation in terms of how we feel, because our thoughts affect how our emotions are, and then our emotions affect how we behave, and then those behaviours turn out to be whether we have a positive experience or a negative experience. So if we could take captive all these negative thoughts, and that's what you can do with regards to that, is can we change that negative thought and replace it with a more positive thought? It is possible and it is achievable, but it does take practice and it does require commitment. And a starting point would be snap out of it. And I say that in a way that physically you've seen me just do an action here is you have to catch yourself at the moment, because physiologically and psychologically there's messages that we respond to. So we can feel lightening if it's anxiety that's in our tummy that churns us up or worries us. We maybe not be able to sleep at night. We can't concentrate. We can't do one task to completion, and there's lots of things we stop and start. So we know that this starts to interact on our capability, which actually doesn't mean that we're not capable of doing it. It's just that we're allowing this to take it. So the kind of things that we need to remind ourselves are actually what we are good at and what we can do and what we are capable of. So quite often we can be our own worst enemy in allowing one part of our life where we're worried about or we have a fear within is to take over every aspect of our life. So if I can explain that in a little bit more detail, it's the kind of roles that we have. So as an individual, we may have several roles or several hats, I suppose, that we wear. So if you think about it, you're a worker, you could be a manager, you are a parent maybe, you're a spouse, you could be a neighbour, you're a friend, and so on and so forth. So we have all these different hats that we wear, and each of these hats actually can help towards our own personal self-esteem. So if one aspect in our life that is not running as well as we would have hoped, as I say, it doesn't affect everything. So you're a great dad, and look at the great work that you've done with your children. You're such a supportive friend, so you're somebody that's always there for your friends. You're not a moaner, you're not a complainer, you don't gossip, you see nice in people. Well, remind yourself of that's what your personality is, that can help support you. Other aspects about giving time to each of those roles, because when fear sets in, it can just take over everything. So if we can only give the time that's deserved, so it might mean, yeah, I know what's happening, what am I going to do about it? So there are going to be those moments for all of us where we acknowledge there is a level of worry, fear or anxiety, and we don't want to get this to take root, and that's in the preventative measures. The next thing that we can do when we come into intervention is where we put steps in place. So we're all aware of the great things that we can be accounting for. So exercise, and we can do a lot more exercise now so we can get fitter, and when you're physically fit it does help on your mental mindset as well. Eating well nutritionally, making sure we're getting our sleep, and being aware of the intake of media or information. So what is the source of information? Is it accurate, or are we being drawn into a lot of doom and gloom and negativity that could even be misinterpreted anyway and it's not factual? So always be mindful of what source of information that you're getting. Stay connected with people. So as part of good mental health and well-being is that we don't isolate ourselves, and that doesn't even mean in a physical capacity in where you're living, but I appreciate when we go out and about and if we listen to our music, and that's a really good release sometimes to just get out and not have to consider some of the things that might be taking root potentially, even if it is for a short period of time. But it might be an opportunity to take our earphones out and then give ourselves a chance to engage with other people, so that we can actually, maybe we can help them or they can help us, and that could just be that nice smile or that nice conversation that really lifts somebody, so we can be helping one another throughout this situation. And then set ourselves realistic expectations, because otherwise if you push yourself to a point where you know you're not going to be able to do something or achieve something, or you can't commit to things, or you are committing to things that you know you can't as such, then otherwise you get other emotions that come in like guilt and embarrassment, and that they start to just attack us even further. So by setting realistic expectations that are achievable and that you can actually manage, then that can start to boost up our levels of confidence as well, and self-esteem, when we start to see that we're actually doing things and that they're effective and that they're working. So that practical side of it really does help. It also supports the resilience because we'll look forward then to tackling the next thing that we have to deal with. And then finally, if we think about what are the protective measures that we've got in place. So it's, you know, at this moment in time, the way society is and the way we're embracing the importance to speak up, speak out, and tell somebody, we know that that's constantly available to us. So there are people we can speak to, there are charities that, if whatever our area of concern, as I say, whether that's your finances or it may be your health, that we can speak to people. And that's absolutely vital. And when we do speak to people, or if we're, should I say, if we're the person that's listening, the thing is, for most people, they don't want you to try and fix them or to come up with the solution or to let them know how to deal with it. They just want you to listen to them. They want to be able to offload. The chances are when that person's speaking, they're already hopefully starting to think how they can tackle this situation. So whether you're the listener or whether you need to be listened to, the important thing is that we are talking. I think now, for most part, in this terrible situation that, you know, we have been in, and that we are living through it, and that we are getting through it, and there are provisions in place to make sure that we're being kept safe. And these reassurances really do help us mentally be able to deal with other things that we're having to be exposed to. So I think that we're becoming a more patient nation, and that we're more considerate, that people are looking out for one another, that we do value things that maybe we didn't appreciate previously, that people are more likely to feel comfortable to speak to, even if it is people we've never made contact with, like our neighbours as such. So there are ways and means that can really help and support our mental health and well-being. So thinking, acting and doing. So I hope some of these things have helped you today, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next session. So thank you and goodbye.